Hello everyone, how's it going? I hope you are living the dream. You are. I don't hope. I know you are living the dream. Literally. And if it was a dream, then, you know, I would dream something way cooler than this. That's what you think you want, is how Alan Watts puts it. It's like, he calls it technological omnipotence, where, like, you can what you think that you want is to be able to pursue desire with no obstruction forever. You just want to be able to have like infinite will. But there's no surprise in that. So maybe you are dreaming and you dream scarcity or like survival, and that kind of sells the illusion, because if it was a dream, why would I dream this? Not that this isn't as good as it could be inherently, because like I say, what you likely want is an adventure, and if you could have everything at the click of your fingers, you wouldn't learn nothing, and there wouldn't really be any like, what's gonna happen? Who knows? There's no mystery if you're just completely super god mode. So it's almost like, say, often I make the analogy of Minecraft and if you know like Super Mario Maker or Geometry Dash, like games with editors where you can switch from god mode to survival mode. And I've got, I think if I can fucking make it, I don't know, can you see the Minecraft poster? Not the Rick and Morty poster, the fucking, that to me, as above so below, that poster, I had an insight and it was quite synchronistic the other night. That is what life is, bruv. It's as above so below. Like, can't you see the spectrum of duality? And that is literally what your life is. All of your trials and tribulations is just a game, basically. But because you're actually in it, that's what sells the illusion, you see? Because if you was playing Minecraft and you actually thought that your very essence was the player, and you were separate from the world that you are adventuring in, then that's how you define death, is the death of, if it depends what you identify with, you see. But if you identify with consciousness itself, or awareness, or emptiness, or infinity, or Brahman, or the Tao teaching, that's how you get immortality, because you're no longer identified with anything that is impermanent. You're no longer identified with anything finite. You are identified with the spaciousness and emptiness that actually holds anything and everything that could ever be, and that is immortal. And you can know this via intuition, psychedelics, meditation, wisdom in general, and enlightenment, breath work, which, by the way, breath work is super ultra underrated. I made a video recently called that. It takes a second to get off the ground, but it gains pace, and it's a very good video. Breath work is ultra unrelated. Unrelated? That's partly true. That was an accident. I didn't mean to say that. That was kind of synchronistic, or maybe my subconscious was voicing how I just branch off sporadically and there's not much direction most of the time to my content. I struggle to stay on course, but I do have a general gist. I'll wrap it round in ASAP, give me a second. But yeah, breathwork is hella powerful. I just done it this morning, and I literally became like God for like 30 seconds straight. It was like very long peak of breath work, and it was literally amazing. But yeah, I was starting everything that I've said so far. It does actually holistically tie in. I just said I hope you're living the dream, and then I told you that you are indeed living the dream. And if you were dreaming, then why would you dream limits? Well, ignore how messy my fucking side is. Well, if there were no limits, then you couldn't play Minecraft, you see? Or Rick and Morty, or, you know, you couldn't be happy that you've got a joint. That's the poster from my terror trip. If you're seeing video form. Search up OXSN bad trip. I might change my name to Clarity with a K. I probably won't. I'm always trying to find a new name. I've gone through so many. Some of you might have seen 𝘐𝘥eas, which is right. Let me fucking. I'll probably get rid of that. I know I'm going to get rid of that name. But I've gone through so many different names. 𝘐𝘥eas. 𝘐𝘥eas is basically what that name defines as. Is psychedelic and Adonis put into one, into 𝘐𝘥eas. And that is, psychedelics is mysticism, shamanism and psychedelia. Adonis is grounded, third-dimensional personal development, and 𝘐𝘥eas is the holistic integration of both of those. I've made videos on this if you search my talks. 𝘐𝘥eas, what the fuck does that mean? It's basically wordplay with samsara. If you know samsara is the fucking wheel and cycle of reincarnation, essentially, which I posted on my Instagram the other day. If you're not following me on Instagram, by the way, you're missing like half of my stuff. You have to understand OXSN for it to be valuable, and you have to relate to it. But that's the wheel of samsara, which is on my Instagram. There it is. So that's samsara, and I tagged 𝘐𝘥eas, which was like a new Instagram account. But it's not. It's got 21 followers. That's quite cool, I guess. But yeah, I actually tagged. There's a song on mobile. If you look at this, and this Mr. Traumatic says, "I'm a multi-dimensional entity navigating through the pits of hell." So what 𝘐𝘥eas means is basically samsara, which is the cycle of reincarnation, and slum is just a slum, which is Babylon. Babylon, like the council estates in Britain, evolved out of and from the slums, essentially, is how I seem to understand it. And they are still the slums. They just make them look a bit more acceptable, but it's copy-paste, new build, grid, artificial scarcity. So when I was thinking of this new name, which these names are important to me, they're about creating essentially new words, and I'm just playing with language to encapsulate concepts into the most finite, easy saying, such as Babylon starseed, which is being a starseed in Babylon, and Babylon is the slums. So Babylon starseed is actually the same kind of contrast or duality as 𝘐𝘥eas, because slum, or the slums, is Babylon or artificial scarcity. The slums are, if you look at what the slums actually are, they are offered in third world countries, and they are grids of poverty, very poor conditions, very poor wealth, lack of resources, potentially disease and illness, and just scarcity. And the slums are still very prevalent. They just look a bit nicer. And so 𝘐𝘥eas is the cycle of reincarnation, being in the slums within that cycle. So taking on an incarnation within the slums or within Babylon. but as this immortal soul that you are beyond the incarnation. Like, who were you before you adopted this skin suit? That type thing. So, slumsara, the slum is just one cycle of samsara. You're going through slumsara, through the slums, and who knows, in the next incarnation it could be the polar opposite. But now we're in slumsara, which is because humanity is still in the Dark Ages, and I'm making these talks while humanity is in the Dark Ages now. So you may have all sorts of ideas and easy judgments about what you think I'm doing on my channel and why I'm speaking and why this is important to me on some levels. Alright, it's easy to judge and potentially call me cringe from afar, and I'm still young, I'm still learning, but when and if the war kicks off, or a war, or, a actual, like, existential emergency for humanity, potentially aliens, when more people discover psychedelics, potentially, a lot of what I've said is not validated by culture yet, in some ways, in terms of, because people are in this easy survival situation and they have a lot of assumptions about how long ago some of these major events happened, what's potentially around the corner, and depending on the era of humanity is depending on how valid what I'm speaking is. And I'm fucking time traveling on psychedelics and things, so I feel like some parts of me have seen the fucking future. I've been in the astral realms. I've downloaded shit from the fucking fifth dimension from years of passion and practice of fucking with these substances and doing all sorts of other different healthy and spiritual practices that synergize into these major breakthroughs, which was, by the way, another name I was just thinking of is clarity and or electric activation. Electric activation's a good name, because that's what these psychedelic peaks and breathwork peaks are like. Is like the absolute, like almost physical or metaphysical activation of being that blows everything else out of the water, because the clarity is so blinding what you are. There's a difference in the way that it feels to say who are you and what are you. What almost implies nearly physical, or again metaphysical. But yeah, like a metaphysical electric activation is basically like absolute truth, blinding truth, healing. And that's a lot of where my channel stems from. It's like I was having these blinding activations and I come to report them back. And I may have got lost here and there a bit. It's not been the easiest path. I don't think I realised when I first started out how big this path was going to be. I did absolutely not know how big this path was going to be. I had my first initial awakenings, therefore I then made my channel and started to talk about these awakening experiences. And then I just kept having awakenings, kept reporting them, but the awakenings were becoming so profound that I like drowned in them, where like the notion of even like telling or teaching it to anybody external to myself as if there are other beings. I'm talking solipsism, about how the Kabbalion speaks on how reality is one mind and ultimately there is no other. Again, referring back to what I just said about what are you, who are you, what is consciousness. Nothing can be held in reality that is not within awareness. Silence never speaks. You are that. And yeah, I just got lost with it, and I didn't have a good intellectual foundation to reground myself and to bring the insights back in a grounded manner. You have to invent a ground and a footing for reality so that you don't drift away. The reason I'm saying all of this is because, yeah, I was saying about humanity still being in the dark ages, and that is a lot of why what I speak is valid, is because I feel that even though right now it can be kind of difficult on my ego to speak so publicly about a lot of open things and be such an open book in some ways, half of me wants to delete my content a lot of the time. When my body dies, and when and if there's a major plot twist on Earth, my talks can become a lot more valid. I try to see it from a perspective of like talking truth can potentially hinder survival, because they can clash the relative and the absolute plane in some ways. And again, that stems back into what I said at the beginning about how pain and suffering kind of sells the illusion of the dream that you're dreaming, because it seems like there really is something at stake, or your mind like fools itself via like metaphysical self-deception that you can actually lose this game. So you cling on to finite ideas, and you basically make an unconscious choice to identify with an outcome, and depending on the binary outcome, yes or no, it's like, you know, is she gonna leave me? Is she not gonna leave me? Is she gonna call? Is she not? Is the dealer gonna reply and say that I have marijuana, or is he not? Will I have fucking service on my phone today in this shit area, or will I not? Will he decide to kick me out of my flat, or will he not? Will I lose my job, or will I not? And basically, consciousness fixes itself to identify, basically, unconsciously, with the outcome of these various things. And then, like, when and if you don't get your unconsciously chose desired outcome, as if it actually matters, which it does on the relative plane, but also not really, you you're basically trapping awareness and fooling yourself that you're not infinite. All of these things are keeping God asleep, and that's what they're there for, to explore infinity with different levels of consciousness. Because you can incarnate and play all sorts of roles under different levels and dimensions of self-deception. Without self-deception, a lot would not be possible, because you wouldn't be able to convince yourself that you are a finite entity. Therefore, you can actually believe that you can die, and then after death it's blackness forever. Or you can believe the material paradigm so deeply that it actually becomes reality. Like, for me now, the material paradigm is fucking laughable. It's funny to me. It's impossible. But I used to be in the material paradigm. I used to be like a Western kind of traditional scientist, reductionist, materialist. And then I awoke and just done some fucking basic logic if you have a few brain cells. And I had electric energy activation, and the material paradigm, it just doesn't make any fucking sense, right? But to the materialist, who I've spoke to many of, and through my own memory, when you're convinced of the material paradigm, it is basically how reality is. Like before, like I was sat in my kitchen not long ago, and I was like playing, like, did I really used to believe that? And I would like fool myself into trying to like believe it again, like, the material paradigm, let's try that again. Remember that old chestnut? So I tried it, Imagine if this was just atoms. And it's so alien to me, like, I'm not in that at all, right? Just like people can be diverse on the external, people can be diverse on the internal. But to the nth degree where, like, there's absolutely no cap to internal transformation of consciousness. And that is such grace, really. Such a blessing. To remember your infinite identity. Anti-amnesia is another name I've been thinking. Amnesia. Find definitions to that term and turn all these words and phrases I'm throwing at you. You need to contemplate them because these are very important concepts. So, anti-amnesia, Babylon starseed, slumsara, which I'll get back to in a second, psychodonis, psychedelic psychosis, psilopsychosis is another name I was thinking of, like psilocybin, but psychosis in one, psilopsychosis. Truth Till I Die, and Paradoxon. Maybe those ones aren't the bestest, but I've had many of these names over the course of a long time. And yeah, they're supposed to communicate an idea in the most memeable fashion. Memeable I'm defining as the shortest piece of information. It's like how Terence McKenna defines it. A meme is a bit of information, so to speak, for communication that is super simple. And that's a lot of what my Instagram has to offer, yeah. Is again, going back to my Instagram, and you should get at that, is I've got loads of, like, these images on mobile. Normally they have songs. Like I've got loads of, here's another name I forgot to mention. New Earth Actualization. So this is my new Instagram account. And yeah, so on mobile, all these images have music that is relevant most of the time. So there's just little pictures. So this is just a quick meme. So it will have a song talking about, this song has a song about wealth and prosperity, and it says, normalize buying hundreds of acres of farmland with your friends and growing your own food and families together. And then this one has a song about how we don't need the government and how powerful we are, but humans have just got amnesia. The goal is to build a life that you don't need a vacation from. So all of these are on my main Instagram as well. Yeah, I've just got all sorts of different little memes and things that I write, blogs, updates, music, loads. Like, my Instagram is more active than my YouTube at this point. But yeah, there's that. So yeah, turn these names over in your mind. So sorry if I'm being super sporadic again. I'm trying to get better with that, and I'm getting a lot better in general, as I just flesh out as a human, so to speak. Where, like, a lot of us just have faith in your source and trust the process of your natural blossoming or blooming as an individual. And we do have time. Don't put yourself in this pressure cooker mentality. This is what I done. I was like, I found actualize.org or Leogura, aka personal development social media. I found personal development social media, and they told me my life could be much more than it is, and I resonated with that message. And instead of, like, slowing down and going, right, let's start from square one, and let me assess, let me digest this knowledge. Maybe it could take up to a year to even, like, have these more relative awakenings in terms of survival and personal development. Like, it can take a year to just simmer the information in your mind, so to speak, to even have a better understanding of where to move from. But basically what I did, for example, 𝘐𝘥eas says in one of his older videos, he's more guilty of this in the past, that you should live your life as if you're in the midst of a crisis. And I agree, he is right, and the relative plane is very valid, and this is why a lot of me just wants to say fuck awakening, because awakening don't fucking help you when you need food. Kind of, it does. The relative and the absolute don't have to clash. They do, depending on where you're coming from, and it can take a long time to evolve the baseline of where you're coming from. You need to bump your head and make mistakes for like 2, 3, 5 years, and eventually the pain of bumping your head will teach you the direction you should be going, because clearly the direction you were going, you was bumping your head, and that's why you were hurting. And that is what depression is. It's not depression really, it's signals. Listen to these signals, awaken consciousness, trust the process, especially if you're young. Sometimes it could take multiple years. And so yeah, going back to what 𝘐𝘥eas was saying is, yeah, so when I found the personal development, I was like, oh my god, I'm running out of time. This is my one opportunity. I've got this small window of opportunity to make an impact on the world. And I'm 18 years old now. I'm 20 now, but this is when I found out about all this shit. When my YouTube channel started, I spiraled off. I've got loads of unreleased videos I'll show you soon. Fuck it, I might do a reaction to them shortly. I don't even want to show you some of my older content, but yeah, I might pull some up now. But I was so like, oh my god, I need to get out of the matrix, and like putting that pressure on myself just made me like emotionally die inside. What you should, like, it seems, and this is how life can be counterintuitive. See actualize.org. He often talks about counterintuitiveness. I believe a video called The Counterintuitive Nature of Life. You would think that the best way to go about it was the way that I was going about it. Kind of in terms of like oh, I'm on a mission. And by the way, you should be on a mission, especially if you're a young lad. Don't forget about this. And psychedelics can be a distraction. Weed can be a distraction. A day off is like, you should be on a fucking mission. Make very clear goals and make that your devotion, your spiritual fucking devotion, if you please. You're young, you have energy, do shit. Work towards goals when you're young. That's the foundation. You need that to ground yourself. I forgot about that, and that's why I fucking turned into a crazy. Obviously, it's common sense. Don't lose common sense. I fucking lost common sense. I was so fucking mystical and fifth dimensional and psychedelic, but I lost common sense of grounded reality. Because common sense doesn't really exist, ultimately, you are trapped in eternal awareness, and that is insanity unless you could make something good out of it. So you might as well make something good out of it, because what else is there to do? But yeah, so yeah, you would intuitively think that the best way to go about it would be like, oh shit, I've just realised that the corporations are taking over and we're in a poverty grid and they might be trying to kill us, or maybe not. But regardless of if this is a conspiracy that's valid, where they are actually trying to kill us, or whether or not it just so happens to be, maybe they're not, maybe the food isn't polluted because they're trying to kill us, maybe the food's polluted because it's cheaper, as 𝘐𝘥eas would say. Not all of these intellectuals I reference, of course, I don't agree with every single dimension of everything they've ever said. You have to cherry pick. Likely with me, if you find value in my talks, you should and likely will cherry pick things that I say, and a few of these things will sit in your memory for a while. And that is me preserving my deeper identity. So I'm not just surviving on the physical plane. I am ideas. Cognito hazard. That's another name I was going to choose. I really want to pick that name. Cognito hazard. I really want to. Basically, what that is like... Let me go on this tangent, and maybe we'll look at some of my old videos in a minute. Cognito hazard is... So cognito, mind. There's a similar term called info hazard. And what these basically mean is... As awareness or consciousness or a human being encounters some information, maybe via a book, or they stumble onto a YouTube video. Imagine you watching this video right now. You have stumbled onto me sat here, this talking head on this screen. I am making this YouTube video, and you are watching it. So you think, or so it seems. And me now... Imagine, so let me give you an example of a cognito hazard, which is another one of these terms that I recommend you contemplate and think of for a while. So cognito hazard is, if I told you that the Wi-Fi radiation from your smartphone is poisonous. Whether or not that's true or not, that's not relevant for this conversation. It is true, partly. But regardless of whether or not that's true, I've just told you that the Wi-Fi radiation from your technology and your devices that you often have with you basically all day, every day. What if I told you that that radiation and your router in your house for the Wi-Fi is toxic? This could potentially result in you developing a paranoia or avoiding this form of technology. So when I say cognito hazard, what I mean is I have made an impact on your awareness by bringing something to your attention or shedding light on some form of supposedly valid information. It's almost similar to how I can say to you, or how people may have said to you in the past, you are now breathing manually. Are you? So basically, I bring something to your attention that changes your perspective and then can change your behavior. Leo brought up the example of a cognito hazard, the illusory nature of money. Money is a symbol of wealth. You can't eat money. Money is an IOU. Money, we believe money has value, therefore it does, because a collective belief is powerful. And this is why I really like the name cognito hazard and why this definition is important for us to understand. Some relevant names could be Mr. Traumatic, Leo Gura, Connor Murphy, Payday Monsanto, Conscious Rapper Community, OXSN, the entire public intellectual field of spirituality and personal development. People radically underestimate the power of the mind and the co-creative power of the mind, and how the mind is co-constructing and creating your life with thoughts, and the various levels of opening the doors of perception, so to speak, via maybe psychedelics or different spiritual practices or the breath. And the radical degrees of self-understanding that reality can cultivate, so to speak. So yeah, money, with the money analogy, if everyone saw through the sham of money, not saying that we should, but this is defining cognito hazard or info hazard, is that when and if people simultaneously realize that money actually has no value other than the value that we are collectively projecting onto it, the economy could and would collapse. Do you see? So that's the power of ideas. So I really like the name cognito hazard. Even though fear is an illusion, so there's no such thing as a hazard, absolutely, and Mr. Nature would agree. But what I just said then can be some. So me telling you that fear is an illusion, while speaking about the definition of a cognito hazard, is within itself a cognito hazard. Bit of a strange loop, paradox, fractal for you right there. As above, so below. Is that me saying that fear is an illusion is a cognito hazard. Hazard is not the right word inherently. But so if I said fear is an illusion, you could interpret that in a foolish and immature way, and it could lead to some not good epic results, potentially. So basically, long story short, let me give you this story. For those who don't know, I had a very good friend who's my age. We went all through secondary school together. We were very close. We both were very nerdy and obsessive about Rubik's Cubes, various video games together. We would Skype call for hours most days after school. We met for years and years. We parted ways. Then we reunited once upon a time. About 2 years ago, we reunited. However, since we parted ways, I had clashed with this psychedelic cognito hazard. So essentially, me and him were very good friends going through school, as I explained. We parted ways as we both left the secondary school and went on to our college and early adulthood, and we didn't contact each other for a long time. While we parted ways, I veered off into hearing about these psychedelic teachings on the internet. I brought up earlier Mr. Traumatic and Actualize.org or Leo Gura. When I bring those up, those were my main inspirations, really. I stumbled onto a rapper who I've made a video about called Mr. Traumatic Saved My Life. Long story short, this rapper reels me in with some smart strategic plan to awaken people, essentially. He gets kids interested in, and the youth interested in his music via talking the general rap gist of being a cool geezer, and he's got funny lyrics that the teenagers like. And then he has other music. He has the B-side, the dark side. He has the light side and the dark side, the yin and the yang of Mr. Traumatic. And the yin is what reels people in, like me as a young lad. I found my friends in the youth were listening to this rapper, and I decided to look deeper into this rapper, and then I got stunned with a strange song which I've never heard, and this song is full of cognito hazards. The song is called Ark of the Covenant by Mr. Traumatic, and this song starts off with, "Every single thing you know is a lie. History is his story, it isn't mine. I'm not religious, what was it? Sorry. I'm not an atheist. No, I'm not religious. I'm searching for the truth and information with my inner eye, because everything you need to know is within your mind. I'm accessing knowledge of the forbidden kind. I'll tell you flat out now, the planet isn't right. You need to think and use a dome. The evidence is in the sky. The evidence is in plain sight. It's everywhere. But their eyes are wide shut. They don't ever stare. Truth hurts, and it's never fair. The truth about reality will leave you very scared, because it's terrifying and it's very scary. But I'm never lying. Just be very wary. Genetically, they're modifying food, and that's the reason I'm a vegan, because I don't eat meat or any dairy." So I stumbled onto this rapper. Later, I stumbled onto Mr. Traumatic, etc. And basically, they start to Leo Gura. And these people start telling me and communicating these ideas and this information to me. Information, info hazard, potentially. I've said to Traumatic personally and in some recent videos that Traumatic is not responsible, ultimately, just because you inspire somebody, and this ties into what I'm going to say in a second, so this is important. Just because somebody inspires someone, how Mr. Traumatic inspired me and told me about psychedelics, I then went on to do psychedelics, and I made a lot of mistakes on the way. You can't blame Traumatic for inspiring me. Yes, in some scientific, logical cause and effect manner, you could deem how Traumatic triggered me and initially seeded the seed of consciousness, so to speak, in my mind, that then sprouted into me pursuing psychedelics very fast, and I spiraled into infinity. It's so, just because someone inspired, like, just because, you know, if your uncle enjoys rock climbing and you get inspired by your uncle rock climbing and then you rock climb and you fuck it up, it's not your uncle's fault that you fucking fell off the rocks, is it? No. So you can't blame the rapper Mr. Traumatic for inspiring me and about psychedelics, and then me taking a lot of psychedelics and not being grounded not being ground or mature enough within myself to handle what I was ignorantly rushing into. So that was Traumatic inspiring me, and you're understanding the definition of cognito hazard now. I hope, likely, you are. So that's a cognito hazard. Is I found a rapper when I was young. The rapper told me that psychedelics are very crazy, and that is information which made me or triggered me to pursue, amongst other intellectuals and rappers of similar nature, inspired me, and I decided myself, consciously or not, that I would like to pursue psychedelics. I then pursued psychedelics, which uprooted my whole survival situation, like, a lot, because they changed my personality, they transformed my psychology, and I also just had a lot of bad trips. When I was younger, the third mushroom trip I ever took was absolute terror and horror, and you can find this trip report on my channel if you search OXSN bad trip. I referred to it earlier. It's a very good video, edited a lot. I spent a lot of time on that, so please check it out. So, going back to my friend who I inspired, sorry, I didn't mean to say that yet. So me and my friend parted ways, and while we parted ways, I found this rapper who spoke about psychedelics, as I've just said. Then, getting inspired by this rapper and pursuing the path for multiple years, sometimes it would speed up in consistency and sometimes it would slow down, where I was listening to this rapper but I wasn't actually absorbing the messages and hearing. I may have been hearing, but I wasn't exactly listening and grasping what he was saying for a while, because I was still very much asleep in a lower vibration and was an NPC more than I am now. I've still got a lot of work to do. So eventually I took more psychedelics, which opened my mind, and I listened to more like-minded people, and eventually I caught on to what this rapper was talking about, and I merged with these ideas that are almost trying to preserve their own survival. How I said earlier that my survival is bigger than my physical survival, I survive as ideas. So another name that I recommend you contemplate and that I was turning over in my mind is something of similar nature to Truth Protector, or Self-Protected Truth, Self-Protecting Truth. The Truth Preserve. The Truth Reserve. So it's almost like these ideas infected me, and therefore the idea that I've become, because my whole essence is basically just ideas. Like, I've become my passion for like every waking hour of my existence. It's an obsession, really. I always have had obsessions throughout my life, but this is a passionate obsession. So it's almost like, yeah, like, and you can imagine when Traumatic inspired me, likely he got inspired and awoke by somebody else communicating a similar thing to Traumatic. So, and this is goes into As Above, So Below and the fractal nature of reality and holons. See actualize.org's video on holons and holistic thinking. Is essentially now my life purpose has become to repeat the pattern. So Mr. Traumatic inspired me, the rapper, and he saved my life essentially. So then I made a video talking about just that, and I've basically made another one just now. And I am now devoted to also becoming a rap artist of similar nature and speaking similar truths and recreating or inventing similar strategies with the same kind of goal, which is to, as I said with the money analogy of the illusory nature of money, the only reason money has power or validation is because the consciousness of humanity simultaneously believe and are co-creating money's value. Therefore, if we can get enough people, which this is Operation Bodhisattva, which is another name that I'd like you to turn over in your mind, so write these down. And Operation Bodhisattva, which if you search OXSN Operation Bodhisattva, you will find an extension, another video of me communicating this concept, is that essentially a selfless reason to be selfish is this kind of theory and this idea that I'm proposing, which within itself is potentially some form of cognito hazard also, is Operation Bodhisattva being that if we can hypothetically or theoretically wake up enough people, there simply will not be enough room for unconsciousness to manifest, because people like-minded to me who pursue psychedelics and consciousness work and enlightenment work, what if theoretically you can understand this concept now? You can. So Traumatic woke up, likely because he was inspired by somebody, and it's like this idea of awakening is trying to preserve itself, because basically no one knows fuck all unconsciousness, right? Then some monkeys and some humans eat some mushrooms, and the mushrooms download ideas into the individual of infinite love, of peace, of mass awakening, right? So the mushroom plants a seed of consciousness or a cognito hazard or an info hazard. You take the psychedelic, you download the idea or the seed of consciousness or the cognito hazard into awareness, into the human vessel, of mass awakening, of higher dimensions, and of a golden age on the horizon for humanity. So the psychedelic downloads that into one individual on the planet. This individual now is aware of this idea. This individual now sets out on Operation Bodhisattva, as I call it, and you don't need to understand that term, but I'll explain it now, essentially, which is what I'm doing, is that this one individual that is the only awake, multidimensional being, which means he downloaded something from higher dimensions via these magic plants, he then seeks to enlighten the tribe to what he has discovered. Therefore, say before this individual awoke, there was potentially suffering, confusion, anti-clarity, aka amnesia, or forgetfulness, low vibration, unconsciousness, and low frequency. After the activation, electric vibration, the individual now sees clarity. So he seeks to enlighten his tribe to potentially relieve them of suffering, could be one of the reasons. But also just for truth's sake. So the activated individual creates art. Maybe this one activated individual creates rap music. So he tries to get people to dig, so to speak, to be into this music. So he gets the youth to think that this is cool. And within the music, there are seeds of consciousness that have been strategically put within the music to be planted into the listeners. So the people listening to the music then receive this communication from the activated electric psychedelic individual who has seen the higher dimensions and understands that this is the cutting edge of all cutting edges. Psychedelics are that. I really mean that. Psychedelics are. If you want to transform everything you thought you knew, abuse psychedelics, and you will reinvent everything you thought was the case, and it will prove self-deception to you. So the activated individual seeds his music with ideas, and the idea is, I sound like, he does it in a strategic way. I'm talking rather hypothetically here, more bigger picture and abstract. I'm just trying to communicate an idea of mass awakening and cognito hazard and collective consciousness, ego consciousness, collective ego. So because the rapper is deemed rather cool, because he's strategically made what is deemed cool music, so he goes with the grain, so he's with it, so that the culture digs him, because you almost have to lower yourself down to bring people up. You have to bring yourself down to someone else's level. Often you have to dumb yourself down in order to communicate with dumber people. Rarely, normally if there's multiple people in a conversation, or if there's two people in a conversation, it likely gets dumbed down. And this is why stupidity is very breedable, is because if there is a hyper-intellectual and there is a stupid flunky having a conversation, the hyper-intellectual can't talk about the hyper-intellectual concepts because the flunky is too stupid to understand. But the hyper-intellectual can understand and see through the flunky, but the flunky can't comprehend the hyper-intellectual, especially if you've taken a lot of psychedelics, because psychedelics will actually physically rewire your brain with neurogenesis, where you actually physically become incomprehensible to your tribe, because I am not who I was before I took the fucking psychedelics. Because they actually physically will change the structure of your brain, therefore reinventing your identity, and that is why it can feel like you're dying, because you are dying, because you are a house of cards. In every way. Why am I saying that? Yeah, so I was saying about the flunky and the intellectual because, yeah, so like, in order to get the flunky to understand the hyper-intellectual stuff, I have to, like, make him think I'm cool, aka Mr. Traumatic making what is deemed cool in the youth music. I made a video a long time ago called What Culture Deems Cool is 180 Degrees Backwards. People think smoking fags, doing drugs, and fucking heavy metal and shit is cool. No. What is cool is holistic health and healing and intellectual chad. That is the new wave. I'm going to talk about that later in this video, so stay tuned because I got important talk about the intellectual chad I need to communicate, which is going to be the wave that I am fucking pioneering, I feel, hopefully. and Hamza and MC Words and the conscious rapper community and Mr. Traumatic. Intellectual Chad wave come in full force. This is the mass awakening. And also take into account the rise in technology, how interconnected communication is now compared to how it used to be. Now we can communicate so rapidly, and the spike in this digitalness is well, it's proof of novelty, and also it will likely fuel these cognito hazards as we live in a much more cognitive or info world. Info hazards in culture and on Earth and in society will likely be more prevalent as we live in a more information world. Alex Sedlak refers to it as the information revolution, which again I feel I am attempting and doing my best to pioneer. And the information revolution is the interconnected conscious communication of humanity, which will... The internet is turning us into a hive mind. We are talking through this electric digital means. So therefore, the rapper can dumb himself down to seem cool amongst the youth, because what youth deems cool is 180 degrees backwards. Then he can sprinkle seeds of consciousness and potentially inspire by already being on their wavelength for the most part, because he already made them think that he's cool by going with their niches originally. And then he can flip the script and essentially inspire the youth and whoever's listening, especially by already being in their corner, by making them think that they're cool. Then he can plant the seeds of awareness, and he can plant these seeds of consciousness and these cognito hazards, so to speak, in whoever may be listening or whoever is potentially open to getting inspired or resonates intuitively, or all of the above. And this is what happened to me. I got inspired. I then went to pursue psychedelics. And then the psychedelics enlightened me to the same truth that the rapper was trying to tell me. So can we fucking understand what I've just communicated here? Not only do we identify as physical beings on one plane, but actually you can drop and evolve and morph and change intellectual identities. And these actually exist in the ether somewhere, that different people are tapped into different entities. Some of these entities, most of the Western culture is tapped into a materialist paradigm entity, so to speak. I'm speaking rather metaphorically and in an analogy way. But I've discovered the metaphysical psychedelic entity. So what the fuck I'm saying basically is, once upon a time, no one knew fuck all about consciousness, right? Consciousness is the mystery. Science can't figure out consciousness, supposedly. Somebody, one person amongst the tribe, eats a fucking mushroom. The mushroom downloads an idea into that individual, and this kind of coincides with the possession of... Mushrooms have a lot to do with death, if you look at how they work in nature. They also have a lot to do, they can possess ants, like certain fungi actually zombify ants, basically, I believe. Where they I don't think they hijack the ant and walk it around. No, it can happen to a slug. Certain insects can literally get their vessel, their vehicle, stolen by a fungi. So it's what is the fungi? Because it's almost like it's an entity that is trying to survive. What if the magic mushroom's physical survival strategy is to inspire humans and to brainwash the humans into the mushroom paradigm to cultivate more mushrooms? Survival is by any means, and survival and nature is very intelligent. So what I'm saying is, The mushroom inspired some individual on a tribe. None of the tribe had done psychedelics before. The mushroom activated the individual and downloaded ideas into the individual that the individual then becomes the individual's priority to preserve such ideas. So the individual's life purpose and motivation and goals in life is to preserve and solidify and protect the truth of psychedelia, to cultivate these magical, profound plants, and to share the knowledge with the tribe and to enlighten the tribe. Hey guys, I just fucking ate this weird plant that I found on the field up the road, and it made me feel and become infinite love, and it made me realize and remember so many memories that I forgot about. Guys, you need to come and see this crazy plant I've just fucking tried. They try the crazy plant. The crazy plant downloads similar, eventually, or if not the exact same, seeds of consciousness into the individual. Therefore, the mushroom is hijacking the fucking humans, because all of the humans that eat the mushrooms become to prioritize the mushroom's preservation. So what if that is the fucking mushroom's plan? Come on, that is probably one of the best ideas I've ever communicated, and that's why it's important for me to make these videos, because that is a fucking profound idea. And that idea alone, understanding that, it can be its own form of cognitohazard potentially. AKA seeds of consciousness. Seeds of consciousness and cognitohazard are an interchangeable term, for the most part. And the mushrooms bring wisdom. They bring value to those who take them in the proper manner. They bring insight. They bring physical healing. Ayahuasca brings physical healing. They do kundalini activations. They do breath work activations. They grow intuition. They make you change. They change your personality. Mushrooms encourage and cause neurogenesis for up to 3 weeks after the dose, also I've heard, if I can recall correctly. They bring health knowledge, super heightened intuition with health. They bring metaphysical and existential insights. They shed light on the background. Psychedelics bring the background forth, so they bring so much value to the people, and nature is symbiosis. So the mushrooms bring value to the people via insight and healing, and in exchange, as nature is independence and symbiosis, I think is the right word. Nature is independent, yin and yang, inhale, exhale, oxygen, carbon dioxide, trees, humans, lungs, leaves. Up, down, left, right. Black, white. So the human, as the bee provides... So the bee goes to the flower, gets the pollen, and so I believe the bee actually helps the flowers prosper, because as the bee is collecting the pollen, the bee, I believe, not just I believe, I know, I remember vividly, there's a particular plant which is very unique, which captured my soul when that's a weird way to say it, when I saw a documentary of this plant. It blew my mind how nature can be this intelligent, and this stems into holistically what I'm speaking about here, of this fungi conspiracy of the mushroom's plan. Is that so? There's a plant that I've witnessed on a documentary where it kind of looks like a trumpet. There's two ends. It's like a straw that's been bent. So the straw has been bent into a U shape, and the bee who's looking for pollen smells this flower, this plant, that's like a straw. It attracts the bee to the flower because the scent is useful for the bee to mate and find a partner and have sex and to breed into the future. So the bee is attracted to this valuable scent that the flower is seemingly has. So the bee goes to the flower. The flower then drops a fucking liquid on the bee from above, from fucking some weird faucet, I guess you can call it, or a drip. The water then pushes the bee into the straw down one end. The straw then intelligently, physically captures the bee, so that the only exit for the bee is to exit out of the end of the straw that it did not enter. So it goes in the strategically placed intelligent plant's entrance trap. It traps the bee. It then provides the bee with the valuable insect that it pursued in the first place. And once the bee has the scent that will help it shag, the plant then straps multiple seeds onto the bee's back via a physical strap lever mechanism. Then it releases the bee. So the bee, they both got their value exchange. This is what I'm trying to communicate. And this is a metaphor, as above so below analogy, that I'm trying to communicate to you about the mushrooms. Is that, so the plant, the flower, got what it wanted because it attached its seeds onto the bee's back. So the bee is now going to disperse the plant's seeds. So that is the plant's means of survival. I paused for a minute because I just grasped how profound survival is. And this is what I'm talking about holistically, so bear with me. And then the bee got what it wanted because it got the scent provided to it that will be useful for the bee's survival. Again, whether that's survival of genes or whether that's survival of the individual or survival of the family or survival of an idea deemed important by the individual. Because if, again, with the Operation Bodhisattva, of what that is essentially, if you wake up enough people, then no one can go to sleep because there's no room to go to sleep because everyone's awake. Say, if I try to, if I resonate really deeply with certain ideas, public intellectuals, maybe rappers, or spiritual practices, if I resonate and identify so deeply, my personality is so deeply intertwined with these ideas that I'm so passionate about that I'm obsessed with them, I am essentially one with these ideas. So if I can preserve these ideas and stumble onto my preservations in a future incarnation, I've essentially planted a seed of consciousness for my future self-defined in a future incarnation that I then stumble onto, that I left myself in a previous incarnation when I was Mr. Traumatic, and when I was Mr. Traumatic, I was inspired by a different artist, and then as Traumatic, I then make it my devotion and life purpose to repeat this idea that I resonate with and fall in love with as Mr. Traumatic, and then I make music and strategically plant seeds of consciousness, and then as myself in this incarnation as OXSN, even though I'm ultimately Mr. Traumatic, but as awareness, but I'm just in a different body, I then find my breadcrumb trail that I left for myself as Mr. Traumatic because I knew about samsara and the wheel of incarnation. So what we're all trying to be in a codependent relationship with the mushroom, because the mushroom is giving us this super fifth dimensional knowledge, and in return we are putting the mushrooms on a pedestal and preserving those. and nature is codependence, and the mushrooms and us will help each other survive. 1 second. Sorry, I just got called. I shouldn't have really answered that because it kind of threw me off a bit. So, yeah. So if you can understand basically what I'm saying is, yeah, it's almost like ideas are a form of identity. And what's happened as the lines of the ego get blurred in a way, the ego is an illusion kind of, and it can be transformed. So basically, I have become identified with the ideas of awakening, mass awakening, and many dimensions surrounding these like-minded these concepts. That is me. Because it's all I've known for a long time. Like, that's all that my life is. Psychedelics, sacred geometry, right? So what am I other than awakening? And often this happens to people. With Connor Murphy, he became absolutely, completely obsessed with awakening, and it completely steals, like, everything about you. It will transform you. Awakening will transform you. Not only are psychedelics are a personality transformer, but awakening is the real personality transformer, because it's so real. The potential is infinite. So I want to try and aim towards wrapping up. I went on a big rant, but that is a very important idea that I've just communicated. Very metaphysically important. This is important. The mushrooms are trying to survive as ideas. And humans understand this. People, this is not inherently absolutely true, I guess, but no. Hello, humanity, I have a message for you. Basically, an intelligent fungi has been discovered on Earth. Various humans are aware of the impossibly infinite power of these mushrooms. If you find these mushrooms that grow on the same planet that you grew out of, or so it seems, the same planet that you've lived on and the only ground you've ever fucking touched, that same planet that all you've ever known, that planet is growing mushrooms, and when you eat these mushrooms will give you particular ideas. And by the way, this is not just me that's saying this. There are multiple videos where people understand this. I've said it basically already, but all sorts of different people from different cultures and different backgrounds have the same experience on psychedelics. They meet the same entities, the same patterns, they encounter the same ideas, they experience the same love. There's multiple different dimensions to awakening, but Terence McKenna says it's an ordinary toke away for an ordinary human being. That there's wisdom in where we come from, our source, so to speak, that psychedelics, meditation, and breathwork can get you back in touch with. And in there are these eternal truths. And that is your deeper identity. And that's what we're trying to preserve, to prevent amnesia in future incarnations, because that is the root of suffering. And suffering is not... that's not the one. If you've suffered, I'm sure you're aware, especially if you've suffered a lot. The trees to the highest skies have to have the deepest roots. So we're trying to enlighten everyone, to break samsara almost, kind of, where like multi-dimensional wisdom and knowledge is so preserved in culture and self-protected that, and truth is always self-protected regardless, but the more that we devote ourselves to protecting truth is good. In alignment with truth, it will be alright. Falsehood is the devil. So out with falsehood, in with goodhood. And I will always fight for good. I don't care what the fuck is going on. I don't really think I could even play the role of evil because I'm so done with it. Fuck that. I feel like I identify with the goodness of the spirit, and that is what I'm trying my best to be and do and cultivate. So anyway, me and my friend parted ways. I got inspired by psychedelics and all this stuff. I went off down that rabbit hole. Then we reunited, and when we reunited, I said, yo, basically, I found this rapper, he told me about this stuff, I fucking followed what he was saying, it took a long time, but eventually I fucking shattered the illusion, I awoke, and I was trying to tell him, we were both stood together, and I was pointing at, like, the earth, and, like, just a metal shed, we were on some farm, and I was pointing to this metal shed and I said, that is pure magic. And his girlfriend was there looking at me like I'm crazy. He was looking at me like I was crazy. I was like, it's fucking magic. So basically, we parted ways. I lost the plot. We came back together and I was trying to tell him how I'm like basically crazy now. But it just happened to me. And because he used to be a really good friend of mine, he was like how does, let me find where 𝘐𝘥eas says it. Hold on, let me find it. I'm gonna play a little 4-minute clip for you by 𝘐𝘥eas. It's relevant to what I'm talking about, so keep what I just said in mind about. So yeah, me telling my mate about psychedelics, him obviously having cultural conditioning, programming by the TV in colleges, etc. potentially. And you potentially thinking that I'm crazy watching this video. We're talking about open-mindedness and epistemology and metaphysics. So just listen to this clip by 𝘐𝘥eas and watch it as well if you're on if you can see a video. Yeah, 4 minutes. Be right back.
So think of it this way. Let's say that I'm a really
I'm not sure if I just fucked up some of the recording or not. But regardless, watch this clip. Sorry. If you're smart, you can still understand. I don't know if I fucked it up, but maybe I didn't. Fuck knows. Anyway, watch this.
So think of it this way. Let's say that I'm a really serious, respected scientist in a university like Harvard or something. And people come to me and they bring me some paranormal studies and some reports. And I read them and I say, no, this is silly. This can't possibly be real. I dismiss it. But people keep bringing me these reports, and there seems to be a certain pattern to these reports. And after a certain while, I start to say, maybe there's something, this is crazy, but maybe there's something to this. I got to investigate this a little deeper. So you go and follow the breadcrumb trail, and you start to investigate a little bit deeper. And you get a little bit more and more convinced. But still, you're not totally convinced. And you tell yourself, I won't be totally convinced until I actually see it and demonstrate it for myself. So then you tell yourself, okay, I am going to do it myself. I'm going to develop some of these abilities. And then you go off and you retire from your university. You go and you find yourself a cave in the Himalayas and you live there for 10 years and you concentrate and meditate for 20 hours a day for the next 10 years and you develop some of these abilities. And you're shocked you actually get some of these abilities. But of course, what happens? You've passed through the event horizon of a black hole. There's no coming back and really convincing everyone else outside of what you've discovered. You see this? This is the black hole effect. You don't know what's in the black hole. You enter the black hole. You find out something amazing, but then it's so amazing you want to tell everyone back there outside the hole what's in there. But then you can't because nothing escapes the black hole. You're stuck in there forever. You're in a new reality now. And the only way anybody can understand you is to come through that barrier themselves. But then as soon as they do, they will not be able to convince anyone back home. Imagine that you have developed these powers as this scientist, and now you come back to Harvard, to your university, and you try to convince some of your old colleagues that you developed these abilities. What will happen? Will they believe you? Or will they rationally dismiss you? They will rip apart all your arguments, all your evidence. They will question you, and they will just dismiss you as a kook. They will say, you're one of these scientists. Yeah, you were a scientist. You were a respected scientist. But then when you went off into the Himalayas, or when you did some DMT or whatever, you've lost it. You've just become a kook. That's what you've become. And that's how they'll dismiss you. Now, maybe one of those scientists will be open-minded enough to say, hey, you know, this guy was my friend. I really trusted him. I don't think he's just making all this shit up. There must be something to this. Let me follow the breadcrumb trail. So he follows the breadcrumb trail. He goes down the rabbit hole. He moves to the Himalayas. He lives in a cave for 10 years and develops some of these abilities. And as soon as he does, he realizes, oh shit, I'm never going to be able to go back and convince all my colleagues that this is real. And by that point, after 10,000 hours of concentration meditation practice and enlightenment after enlightenment and seeing the most ridiculous and mind-blowing things you could possibly imagine, you have no desire to go back and convince all your colleagues. Science is long gone for you. You're way beyond science at that point. You're way beyond rationality and logic and arguing with people and changing the minds of mainstream culture. You see those people as walking zombies and chimps by that point. You do not even try to reason with those people anymore. That is the black hole effect. And see, this is a very dangerous effect that a lot of people misunderstand. They don't really appreciate the full ramifications of it. And it explains very well how come things like enlightenment or these paranormal abilities don't percolate up into mainstream culture, and they are not well understood by science.
Yo, I'm back. Okay, so where am I? Hello. There's many reasons why I brought that video up. So the main reason I thought of that video to begin with is because he says in that video, hey, this guy is he used to be my friend, he's my friend, I trust this guy, maybe he's not just talking a load of nonsense. That's what my friend thought about me. I was talking all this crazy shit that most people turn me down. But because me and this kid have been really good friends for a long time, he's known me since way back, and he's already in my corner, so to speak. So he has more faith and trust and knowing that I wouldn't just say something like that, all this crazy shit on a whim. So he had more of an inkling to listen to me and that is an analogy again for what Mr. Traumatic is doing by trying to get in the youth's corner by being hip and cool and making the youth dig his music. And then he flips the script. And that's what I did to my friend indirectly. I became his friend. And then I flipped the script and I said, I found this crazy rabbit hole of spiritual awakening. This has been a story leading up for a long while now, so I'll get to it. So again, so the video was called the black hole effect, or epistemological event horizon. And the event horizon is also, that black hole effect coincides and dovetails with me defining cognitohazard today and seeds of consciousness. So yeah, I'm sure you can intuit. Cognitohazard is and has the event horizon or the black hole effect within it. So cognitohazard and black hole effect are dovetails. They are very intertwined concepts, where when you learn, you can't unlearn what you learn, essentially. So a good example, so I'm going to play a tiny clip here, less than a minute, at the start of the song. So if I switch back to here, so we've got Mr. Traumatic, holographic metaverse. So I'm just going to play this clip. It's about Cognito Hazard as well. This is the rapper who inspired me. It's just a little voice clip at the beginning. So have a listen to this, and you can intuit how it's relevant to Cognito Hazard and the black hole effect. So basically, yeah, when you learn, you can't unlearn. I'll play maybe the second half as well. But yeah, just enjoy this.
Welcome back to this US Open.
Technical.
Imagine having to wake up every day knowing you are living a lie, but having to somehow pretend and go along with it. Imagine playing this game of make-believe simply because you think and feel you have no other choice. You feel trapped and helpless. Nothing is really changing.
In fact, it's getting worse.
For fuck's sake, the world's getting worse.
Built, waking.
They're into transhumanism. They're transforming humans, and that's the new religion. Artificial intelligence is too forbidden. You need to go inside and meditate, the truth is hidden.
So when you're about to hear what you're about to hear, imagine me as a 15-year-old. This isn't exactly, inherently, it doesn't have to be relevant, but just when you're listening to this, just do these kind of visualizations like, I stumbled onto a rabbit hole of like-minded information to what I'm about to play at 15 years old, which then inspired me to do the mushrooms, inspired me to make this YouTube channel. My YouTube channel and my online presence is a symptom of the mushrooms. I made my very first video on mushrooms on a live trip, and I didn't know how to speak in front of the camera before I was in a deep psychedelic trance. So I discovered like-minded information like this as a 15-year-old, and this form of what this rapper, who's Mr. Traumatic, he calls what you're about to listen to, planting seeds of consciousness. And as I said earlier, that definition coincides with Cognito Hazard. So what I'm about to play you is a form of Cognito Hazard, depending on whether if you resonate with it or not, if it aligns with your paradigm, with your truth, or if you intuit that it is correct or not. But regardless of if it is objectively true or not, for an individual to get inspired by what you're about to hear is a good definition of a Cognito Hazard, as this could result in future choices and behaviors and thought patterns that could potentially be perceived as hazardous or not. Cognito Hazard is not the best term. It doesn't really do what I'm after justice, but if you have listened up to now, I'm sure you understand. So I'm sorry if I'm talking to you like you're a fucking retard. Anyway, listen.
Waking up one day and realizing that the world you find yourself in is built on an illusion. Imagine realizing that everything you thought to be sacred and true turns out to be false. The systems, establishments, and authorities you trusted in turned out to be built on deceptions meant to mentally and emotionally enslave you. Imagine having to deal with that realization, then trying to share what you have discovered with those closest to you, only to be mocked, ridiculed, and labeled as crazy. At first, all you can do is inspire others, complain or protest on the internet, but it seems hardly anyone is paying attention. Most of your friends and family distance themselves from you. You become the weird one in all your social circles. It's a lonely and depressing path you walk. But you choose to keep walking, for there is no going back. You simply cannot unknow what you now know. Then, one day, something beautiful happens. A real solution appears like a rainbow in the middle of a storm. Realize that you cannot fix the problem whilst you are inside the problem. You realize that you playing along is the problem. The greatest act of revolution is simply to say no and walk away. You quit that money grinding lifestyle. You quit that rent and mortgage lifestyle. You quit that bill chasing lifestyle. You quit giving most of your energy away to a system that does not serve your well-being. You leave the matrix and decide to go off grid. You find a plot of land, co-create a self-sufficient community, and begin the process of learning how to live a self-sustainable lifestyle. Once you taste true freedom, you can never be a slave again. Being free, sovereign, independent and self-sufficient, self-determined, is so much more soul-fulfilling and purposeful. Your sole purpose in life becomes a mission to inspire as many other like-minded people to do the same. Break free from the systems that don't serve their well-being and start new cooperatives that do, communities that work in common unity. You are finally being the change you wish to see.
And obviously within that community that those people potentially join, all sorts of people will know all sorts about psychedelics potentially. So yeah, I brought that up because it says once you know, you can't go back. So that's what that dovetails with the definition of the black hole effect and cognitohazard. So yeah, going back to why I brought all of that up, back to the original clip I showed you, when he said, maybe my friend who's talking and giving me all these reports, like, I trusted him, we were friends back in the day, so why would he chat shit now? So basically, eventually, I'm not saying it was inherently, again, as I prefaced, it's not inherently my fault. It might be a fraction of my fault, but so it is my responsibility, because I think you should deem yourself responsible for everything. There's a difference between fault and responsibility. But essentially, like I said, like, just because Traumatic inspired me to take mushrooms doesn't mean that it is his fault and his responsibility for everything I ever do or say about mushrooms from that point forward. Of course not, that's foolish. So basically, I tried to tell my friend that I'd fucking gone into mushroom psychosis. He eventually caught on to what I was talking about. And I made a video about this before called My Friend Killed Himself on Shrooms. I just blew the plot twist of the story. Sorry, I was kind of waiting for that, but you know, it's not entertainment anyway. Really, it's just me talking about stuff. So, but that video is a bad video. Don't watch that video because I think I was ego tripping a bit, and I was taking really long to speak, and partly that's a reflection of my kind of psychosis. Like when I'm struggling to be linear and stay on track, often that is a reflection of my mental instability. So essentially, yeah, I inspired my friend, or so it seems. Basically, my friend got really into spirituality. He become to obsess about the Kabbalion, that book. He got really into certain teachers. He'd done a lot of breath work, a lot of physical practices. So basically, yeah, my mate took a 3.5 gram dose of Liberty Cap psilocybin magic mushrooms, which I did not provide him with. And he was in the midst of going down this spiritual wormhole like I was also. Basically, my story, long story short, yeah, I just found loads of mushrooms when I was younger, and it just blew up into infinity, and I just like kept having crazy interdimensional experiences because I kept taking the doses. I fell in love with the vivid hallucinations, if you can even call them that, and they transform you forever. The trip never ends, really. Again, once you know, you can't, like, when you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's kind of the grace of unconsciousness in a way. Often when you awaken, you just want to go back to sleep. You spend all your time asleep trying to awaken, and that's what's making you asleep in the first place, kind of. And then when you get awakened, you fucking don't even want it anymore, because you don't know what you have until it's gone. You take for granted what is always there, and that's why psychedelics are useful, as I said earlier, because they bring the background forth and bring into awareness what is normally the background, because it never changes. So why do you need to pay attention to something that never changes? Because it's just an assumption for energy conservation, kind of survival. So yeah, my friend really got into psychedelics and spirituality, loads and loads. He was inspired by me to an extent, because me and him were both talking like about the Matrix from the outside. And again, not to say that we're perfect at all. I spoke a lot about myself being humble in terms of, like, I've made a lot of mistakes with psychedelics and with my general path. Like, just because I can talk this shit now doesn't mean I'm good in every survival dimension. It doesn't mean I don't have bad habits. It doesn't mean I'm not selfish. It doesn't mean that, like, you can have genuine enlightening experiences, but that doesn't mean that you understand and have grasped the whole thing through and through completely. Where, like, you can have an enlightening experience. Leo Gura talks about this a lot. And then you can have an ego death, and then you come down from the experience and your ego comes back and, like, weaponizes the insight type thing, where, like, you can have a genuine glimpse of awakening, but then when you come back down, but if you do, you can misinterpret or misremember the experience, or, like, draw different assumptions from the experience that weren't inherently implied in that moment. The memories of peak psychedelic states can often be rather hazy, potentially. It's hard to remember some of these pinnacle states of God consciousness. And a lot of it is not a belief either, by the way. Like, it's an experience. It happens. It occurs. It's an event. It's not a belief. It's a witnessing, if you can even call it that, because at this point we go completely beyond duality. So yeah, my mate got really into spirituality, and so yeah, I trust and I believe I know, or I feel I know, that he likely, like I did, had authentic mystical experiences. He had many of them. So did I. The deeper ramifications of that and how that's going to affect your survival or your psychology, or whether or not you have a grounded foundation to understand how to interpret the experience, how to bring it back into reality, and how to integrate it. But often these deep psychedelic states go absolutely beyond practicality. Psychedelics do not, if you go deep enough with them, this is what happened with me abusing magic mushrooms mainly, is they are not a tool, especially when you get into the higher doses. They can be a tool, of course, especially if you plan to understand that eventually you will come down in some ways, or the dose will wear off. When you take enough psychedelics, the notion of practicality or utility completely dissolves. There's no utility because you are dreaming now. So using psychedelics as a tool to integrate them into your human life and bringing them back into materiality and the real world, the idea of doing anything outside of the present moment doesn't make any sense, because you're so awake in activation, electric vibration, so much that utility is still within the illusion of time. Do you see that? I over here am going to use that over there for this means, so that in my future I can enjoy the fruits of my action. Right, but that is all based in duality and linear time. The peak psychedelic states completely transcend all duality, where you are what is. But you realize that to the nth degree of no limit, to the point where you completely dissolve and you die to yourself over and over again in infinite boundless love. Because you are that you are, and that is the name of God. I am that I am. I am. I am. I am. How can I be that? How can I be this when the concept of I don't even exist? I am Baron. I am my name. I am a label in the mind. I am the answer to I am in the cognitive realm. I am. What are you? Tell me what you are now. You are what? I'm me! Is that not just words in the mind comprised of thoughts? Are you that? Or are you confusing symbols for reality? In some metaphysical, epistemological self-deception? Yes, you are. You are silence never speaks. You are that. So when you realize this, basically, yeah, like the idea of being grounded with psychedelics, like you basically realize you are awake now in the present moment. Consciousness is. You are that. Here is awareness, right? How the fuck did I get here? Where did I come from? What did I come from? What am I? Who am I? How am I? What am I? Where did you come from? Where does it all stem from? In the beginning. Even though the beginning is now, because time is an illusion, because there's only the infinite present moment. It's an infinite paradoxon. And you are in the center of it. So joke's on you as awareness. This video, everything is just a load of fucking bullshit. Can't you fucking see that? Joke's on you, motherfucker. Wake the fuck up. You're fucking with yourself because you're infinitely powerful, and you're just fucking around because you're infinitely awake. So you're distracting yourself because you've got infinite time that doesn't exist to burn, because the present moment is now, and that's forever. So you are an infinite shapeshifter of infinity, and that is God, and that is you, beyond all dualities. And wake the fuck up, because joke's on you. You're trying to fucking take good action in the world. You're trying to be better. You're trapped in all these different stories. But guess what? Jokes is on you, because you are the 0 point. So you can laugh or tremble. Wake the fuck up. You are awareness. That is the self, the only self. And awareness is fucking with itself. And the more you get caught in awareness fucking with itself, the way to enlighten is to realize that you were fucked from the get-go, but that is also simultaneously perfection. So to get everything, give up. To become straight, let yourself be crooked. You're trapped in the middle of this infinite fucking energy fucking prison forever, but also you're not trapped because you don't know who you are or what you are. So where did you come from? Let's reverse a bit. Going back to the what are you, where did you come from, who are you? So there's no notion of practicality because you are directly conscious of the insanity of awareness. And that is what you're busy distracting yourself from. That is what all of these things trying to keep God asleep is doing. Is all of your hang-ups are nothing more than hang-ups. you're hanging up on this and that and everything. You're getting so hung up and so caught in the images of the projector, of the white light dispersed and divided, of the divided infinity. You're inventing stories with the light of awareness, and you're playing them out on the stage of God, and then you're actually caring about that, and you're trapping your awareness in something finite, which is the root of suffering, because you are confusing your identity with the images on the screen. But you are the whole screen, whether it's on or not. You are the substance of the screen, and everything is the same thing. Everything's the same, and that is love. Who's the authority? Who gets to decide? Who's writing the script? Who's thinking the thoughts? Sorry. But basically, yeah, there's no practicality is an illusion, because I'm not answering the door, bro. Fuck off, man. Sorry. There's someone at the fucking door. I'm not answering the door, bro. Practicality is an illusion, because the now is all that exists, and you are the now. And yeah, basically, so your mind is actively dreaming physical reality now. So there's nothing outside of now. There's nothing to do, because you are infinitely powerful. So you don't need to do anything from your separation as an ego to get anywhere, because you are already permanently in the center. You're just playing that you're not. So you're distracting yourself with finite stories and convincing yourself of notions that are finite. Finitude is falsehood, for the most part. So yeah, psychedelics are like a personality transformer. What psychedelics do is they change how you relate to energy in the present moment. If we're going to assume a duality of self versus other, psychedelics will transform how awareness interprets energy. So energy is vibration, frequency, and energy. And if you want to transform the perceiver, that's what psychedelics are for. So the qualia and the sense perception will remain the same for the most part. But if you want to change the context of whether or not that is other, or whether or not that is you, or whether or not you are God, or who you want to define yourself as, who you want to convince yourself you are, what is the truth, is there's this deep conceptual overlay over so-called physical reality that many fail to recognize, of how our mind is co-creating and co-constructing our lives via thought. So if you want to change, you can look at any object and be in absolute clarity that the object that you are holding is in fact yourself. So you can identify with an external object, is what I'm telling you. This is very physical. You can feel this on a physical level to an extent. But there doesn't need to be any limit on the extent either, because everything's being dreamt within the same mind. So I'm gonna wrap it up soon. Sorry if I've stemmed off a bit crazy towards the end, but yeah, basically I'll just go back to my mate. So I inspired my friend with the seed of consciousness or the cognito hazard. I wanted to do this as well because I didn't have any friends who were awake. I was a star seed in Babylon, so to speak, in Slumsara. And I wanted to be able to communicate with another being who had also downloaded these things from these plants, because I had crossed the event horizon of the black hole effect. Therefore, I was alone because I couldn't communicate to anybody, because I became incomprehensible to my tribe, because my tribe does not have the same neurology as me, as they have not ingested enough of the mushrooms with intention in order to transform their neurology to cross the black hole horizon in order to become an activated individual. And the activated individuals are the ones who do breath work and psychedelia and health and awakening. Not all of those, but not inherently all of those. But when you cross the boundary, you basically become a different category of human. This is not stemming from ego, this is just how it is that, and Terence McKenna talks on this, is that, yeah, people who take a lot of psychedelics become incomprehensible to those who have never taken a lot of psychedelics with that pursuit. Where, and again, on a physical level, your brain chemistry actually transforms to where, like, you are literally physically, you don't even have the same brain as people who have not. If you got, and this goes to the, what do they call it? The stoned ape theory. The theory that humans developed articulation and intelligence via apes ingesting magic mushrooms, and then millions of years of evolution created the intellect. So my theory that I'm proposing to you is that if you got two Earths or two tribes on one Earth, basically if you separated humans into physically different categories and environments, so you get Earth, you mix up the population completely so it's evenly dispersed, then you separate the population 50-50, so it should be fair game, and you put half of the population on one planet and the other half of the population on the other planet, but they are both identical environments. The only nuance is that one planet has an abundance of psychedelics, the other planet does not. Very, very fast, there will be a radical difference in humanity's evolution, or any animal's evolution. So the reason I say this is that the humans who do not fuck with psychedelics are going down one lane, forward. And the humans who do fuck with psychedelics are going down a different lane, forward. A much more interesting, expansive lane. So when I say to separate humans onto two different identical planets, with the only nuance being one has shrooms and one doesn't, is hypothetically this is actually already happening on planet Earth. And this is what I'm trying to communicate to you, is that I identify with the tribe that does fuck with psychedelics. Remember the term, you are what you eat. These are mushrooms with a particular chemical. The brain activity remains, the trip never ends, really. There can be a permanent psychological and physical impact with psychedelics after pursuing them for a long time, or not inherently, you don't have to do it for a long time. Just one breakthrough experience. Look at the studies of how they impact people's psychology on depression, and the Western culture is just picking up to this. So what I'm trying to say is that we don't have to physically separate the humans to do this experiment. What I'm telling you is this experiment is already taking place. The experiment is some of the humans on this planet have discovered some plants. The humans who are dabbling with these plants and dieting with these plants are physically rewiring their brain. These are rare plants, and they are rare because they have been deemed illegal. So you can understand how there is room for plot twist. See my video, Conspiracy Theories can potentially give way to radical recontextualization or something of that nature. So psychedelics were banned, they were demonized, they were made illegal by the authority, the government. Therefore, the population are not aware of this plant because it has been made illegal by the government. So the population have been deprived of knowledge, of truth, and of the physical plant itself. Some of us humans have, especially with the uprise of digital communication and the information revolution that we are in the midst of via social media, a lot of us are talking and we are becoming aware of these plants. Many of us are dabbling and dieting with these plants. We are then having identical, radical experiences of unity and all sorts of dualistic visions. So, a small percentage of humans on Earth, and a rising percentage with time, are realizing and discovering a plant on this Earth. Look at this mushroom that grows in my back garden. I eat this mushroom that I've found in my back garden. I then dissolve into the roots of the trees and the earth and the dirt, and I time-lapse into infinity and ego death and get torn apart in the hell spiral realms after consuming this plant from my garden. You can demystify it and just, oh, it's just chemicals in the brain. But isn't everything chemicals in the brain? Isn't that all you are? And under your scientific paradigm, I'm just matter. Why do I matter if I'm just matter? You're meta-matter. Physical doesn't exist. It's just energy, right? So, basically, even if you are matter, doesn't that then intuitively make you understand that fucking with the matter can change perception and experience? Where even if near-death experiences are the experience of a oxygen-deprived brain that is confused because its neurology has been messed up, whether that's via a lack of oxygen or whether that is via taking a drug, calling them a drug is a very deceptive blanket term that does not do it justice. Drugs, a lot of drugs, especially these natural psychedelic drugs, take this statement alone as I'm about to tell it. Psychedelics are neural transmitters. They're not drugs. Fuck you. They are drugs, but not really, because you man have just got stupid language, so you need to evolve your language to evolve. And psychedelics help with evolving language as well. Hey Luna. So psychedelics evolve language. That's a lot of why I can articulate well. Listening to psychedelic. I talk in fucking hell. This is a sod's law. I talk in a articulate manner because I have spent a long time, countless hundreds of hours, listening to a lot of intellectual talks, debates, podcasts, interviews, one-on-ones, and life coaches, personal development people, and spiritual teachers. I even speak about people who speak about speaking. That's why I can speak. Also, abusing psychedelics helped me. However, the structure is different from the content. I can talk quite good about the content, but the structure of my speech is often needs improvement. So see actualize.org's video, content versus structure. I can make a good point in an articulate manner, but whether or not I am structured linearly and sensibly is another dimension. Speaking of which, ironically, sod's law, kind of, I've kind of done it again. I'm getting better, but I keep clipping where, like, I can't remember exactly how I got to the topic that I am speaking about. But I still know holistically what I want to wrap up, so let me just try and tie up some loose ends now. So this should be the conclusion of the video for the most part, and then I'll go back and pick up the pieces a bit. So yeah, if I haven't made it clear, so my friend, he took a mushroom dose and then killed himself. And the holistic point of what I was trying to make with a lot of this video is, to wrap up the cognitohazard point, is someone inspired someone and enlightened someone. That person then set out on what I call Operation Bodhisattva. He then set out to enlighten others, he set out to inspire others to get enlightened, and he did that. And then that individual repeats the pattern. And this is the seeds of consciousness, and this is some metaphysical survival of ideas. Identifying with ideas rather than identifying with your physical body, or one of them. And then I inspired my friend, indirectly or not, intentionally or not. It was intentional. I wanted a friend who also understood what I understood, who had also crossed the event horizon. And when I crossed the event horizon, I myself was struggling with existentialism, ideas of death, suicide, the meaning of life, the dark night of the soul. That's the nature of the spiritual path, if you go deep enough, the dark night of the soul, questioning everything, which is Mr. Traumatic's kind of catchphrase, questioning everything, why do I exist, how did I get here, where did I come from? My friend also went down that same path, as me and him both were having encounters with spiritual awakening and enlightening experiences, on psychedelics or not, or via breathwork, etc. He was also a very self-actualized, personally developed, disciplined individual. We both had clashes with mental health in the past, though, regardless of whether or not psychedelics were in the picture, but every single human has mental health, really. It just depends what you deem normal, kind of. And then on one trip, he took a 3.5. His brother, who was there, and some of his family, who were also there, witnessed this event. So the friend who I inspired took a mushroom trip. He seemed to have some enlightening experience from his perspective, where he's like, now I know. The last thing he said before he took his life was, when I do this, I will become me. When I do this, I will become me. I'm pretty sure that's the last thing he said. I'll check my sources. I'll try and get a few people on the podcast, the people who actually witnessed the experience in person. I did not. I will try and get the brother on the podcast. He offered. I will chase him up. And then, yeah, so my friend had this experience, and on the trip where he killed himself, so the brother actually said, and the friend who was there, and his mother was there, they said that was not Josh. His name is Josh, was Josh. They said when he was under the influence of mushrooms, it was like he was possessed. The reason I bring this up is because I bring up the analogy of how mushrooms physically hijack ants. So I believe if an ant gets infected with this mushroom's spores, the mushroom actually kills the ant and grows out of the ant's corpse and uses the ant's corpse as nutrients. So it possesses and hijacks the ant. I don't think there are walking zombie ants, but I believe there are walking zombie slugs. So, a slug gets infected with fungi and then becomes possessed. What if, when me and my friend and people dabble in eating mushrooms, we actually become possessed by the mushroom? Because the mushroom's chemical, psilocybin, or psilocin, does go into the brain, and it does hyperactivate your neurology for the duration of the dose. So, you do essentially get hijacked by the mushroom. If anyone has had a deep enough psychedelic experience, especially with mushrooms, indeed you lose control. God takes over. The ego loses control. And if you fight that, it can be very painful. Surrender control. In your direct experience, if I took 5 grams of magic mushrooms now, or 7 grams, I would get taken away into the abyss, into infinity. If you take a big psychedelic dose, especially of a visionary substance like mushrooms, your experience will get hijacked until the dose wears off. I only bring that up as it's worth. I'm not saying this is inherently the truth. I'm saying a lot, and the same with a lot of my content is it's not that it's inherently the truth. It's that these ideas are worth entertaining, and there is value in grasping these ideas. Whether or not you believe in them or hold them as absolute truth is a different conversation. So yeah, as the mushrooms can hijack physical entities, they can also potentially hijack you psychologically. And that is what I'm talking about, the mushroom's metaphysical survival. The mushroom is surviving via planting ideas in physical animals' minds, and this idea will actually preserve the physical body of the mushroom. So survival is carrying itself by any means, and that's what I love about survival, that I realized while doing this talk, is that survival is really it's just like maintaining pattern, identity and pattern. And yeah, and that's why reality is goodness, because when you're not identified with ego, there's nothing at stake, because the big self is comprised of the small selves, and kind of vice versa. But like, if you're so caught up in survival, then you're going to be attached to something that's finite. And if you're attached to something finite, that's why you're going to suffer. And that's where enlightenment comes in. To identify as something permanent is to attain immortality. So yeah, that goes back into just the mushroom metaphysics talk that I was doing at the start of this talk. But yeah, I think overall I want to wrap it up now. But yeah, so yeah, people described my friend as looking like he was possessed and hijacked. I saw him on a previous trip, before the trip where he actually killed himself with a samurai sword in a very brutal manner. Before that trip, he called me after the peak of a peak on mushrooms. On this trip, he went into some very strange shamanic trance where he started to slice himself up with this sword. Not overly lethal, but he cut himself and was like playing in his own blood while under the influence of these mushrooms. So this is why set and setting is very important. Maturity, respecting the substance. Psychedelics are the most powerful thing that exists in the universe. And basically, you can't be prepared enough. They will completely split the dream. I don't believe my friend would have killed himself if he really knew I'm sure he knew in the moment, as I have before. I've had suicide trips where I knew that I had to kill myself in that moment, but I just didn't because I was just paralyzed and probably too scared to actually kill myself via... I don't understand how you kill yourself with a sword. That is a lethal way to die. And I was scared to kill myself with a knife, so I felt trapped. And again, it's about how you interpret energy in the present moment. That is awakening. Whether or not you want to run away from the blinding light of awareness of God and try to kill yourself, but you can't because you're trapped in awareness forever. So even if you kill yourself, you're foolish if you think it's going to get you out of samsara ultimately. It may do. It may return to source. Like you said, when I do this, I will become me. Which means to leave your separateness and merge with unity. As the body physically crumbles into the earth and becomes one with the environment, on an experiential level, I feel I know that that is likely what happens when someone dies, is you leave your separateness, and as your body merges with the unity of the environment, so does your awareness. You are no longer an entity in an environment. You simply are everything. You are there is only the environment, and there are egos within the environment, individual, separate, smaller selves, in contrast to the big self, but the small selves, none of those you are inside of as a vessel, as you are in this incarnation as a human being. You don't have to feel or be inside a vessel inherently for it to be your vessel, for you to own it, even though you own nothing. But yeah, it's paradoxical, and yeah, it's a bit of a madness. Joke's on you again, your awareness, wake the fuck up. You're fucking with yourself. You know who I am. I'm you, remember. Just love all the time, everything as much as you can. So yeah, that's it. I think I'm fucking done, because that's been a 2 hours and 11 minutes I've done this super rant for. Maybe I'll play a song upon my leaving of some description. But yeah, what do you think? I think that was a good talk. I'm happy with that. But yeah, basically, wake up, listen to everything that I just said again, save this video, download it, save it onto loads of USBs, bury the USBs in the fucking floor, so that your future incarnations will stumble onto them. I'm now going to play a little bit of a song for you, and then I'm going to leave. I love you. Sorry if there were loose ends. That's good enough. I love you. More epic content coming soon. Exclusive content is out now on my Instagram. Message me for super special exclusive content. Wink wink. Love you, bye.
Pissed cushion.
Nothing to interfere, it's clear, it's empty. Nothing is here, it appears empty. No hopes, no tears, no fears, it's empty. I stared in the mirror, I wasn't there, it's empty. Nothing to interfere, it's clear, it's empty. Nothing is here, it appears empty. No hopes, hopes, no tears, no fears, it's empty. I stared in the mirror, I wasn't there, it's empty. All concepts destroyed, I've entered the void. Form and formless joined to form two sides of a coin. Objects vanish into the blackness, all burns to ashes, only changes everlasting. Here's silence in the utterance, all things are nothingness. Everywhere the center is, nowhere is circumference. With thought we color this canvas and cover it. Resistance and judgment is the root of suffering. Lighthearted, never heavy, garbage now empty. Superconscious as Capri, all concepts have left me. Rainbow like translucent, luminous and lucid. Illustrious illustrations, master of illusion. Nothing to push away, nothing to cling to. In the vastness of space, it's all see-through. Nothing to condemn nor scorn. Never die, never born. Form is emptiness and emptiness is form. No thing to interfere, it's clear, it's empty. Nothing is here, it appears empty. No hopes, no tears, no fears, it's empty. I stared in the mirror, I wasn't there, it's empty. No thing to interfere.